Hi, let us discuss superhuman conscience. Superhuman conscience is the order of the day in the heart way. You're talking about the heart way, you are indeed talking about the superhuman and the superhuman conscience. Because superhuman conscience is what occurs, that's conscience, is what takes place in the universe of the superhuman universe. That universe that you cannot even perceive, you can't even see it. People talk about heaven, people talk about Satori, people talk about Nirvana, people talk about Abragada, people talk about maths and all that. Because they don't really know. The thing is there. That heartway is there, right inside you. But because you are operating at 9 to 1% and back to 9%, you are not rising up to 10% and above. That's why, and you cannot perceive, you cannot really be in this heartway, in this universe that is within, if you don't operate at 10% of the brain and above. And you must get into 10% of the brain and above and stabilize there, because the science of today is talking about only less than 10%. This science, the whole science, that's why it's faulty. Science is about rationality, and religion is about reasoning, which is ordinary. Science is, abnormal. But the extraordinary, the extra normal, the unusual, the rare, the transcendent, that's what the heart deals with. And that's not what science is doing. Science is not doing anything extraordinary. So if you are extraordinary and you are moving and talking, people dislike you. I don't go to my village. I'm not the elite in my village, don't like me. Because I talk to them about purity. I speak to them about integrity, about honesty, about simplicity, about innocence. Man must be pure as a baby. But people don't like that. People also, stories are told, blah, 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 blah. They're making all the noise and all that. So I have withdrawn. And I'm talking about this one because this thing is going to come out for Africa to, lead the world again. This is what Nigeria needs. Nigeria is going to lead the world again. Nigeria is going to take over and lead. Because there is something called conscience, a government, a business, a politics, a market, everything about the world. If dominated by conscience, you see that transformation will occur everywhere. If you go to the universities, and if the university is governed by conscience, if you go to a church, if you go to a mosque or whatever, and it's conscience that is ruling, that is the heartway. That is 10% of the brain and above. That is superhuman, not metahuman, not human. The human is rubbish. It's nonsense. Because anybody who is just human, then you're not good. You are dirty. Because you are operating in duality and multiplicity, confusion. But if you are operating at the heart level, then that's what we call, it's called singularity and wholeness. Wholeness, integrity, harmony, beauty, and all that. So that is what I call the superhuman heart. The superhuman heart is that heart which you get into when you stabilize at 10% of the brain. But if you hit 10% of the brain and stabilize there, then you see that this world opens up. And if it happens, if everybody is taught this and it opens up, then you will see that you are operating 10% of the brain and above. And those all over the world who are operating 9% to 1 or 1 to 9%, you know that everybody will become inferior, like it was in the olden days. 5,000 years ago, Africa was ruling, and Africa reigned supreme. Africa was mighty and all that. That's why the whole world fears Africa. And they did everything to bring Africa down. But the knowledge, that wisdom was not communicated. That perfection of conscience was not communicated. It was never touched. For 5,000 years, since Africa went down, there was nobody dealing with the heart. There was nobody dealing with the heartway. Now it's going to come back. Because if you are in that world, if you are in the universe above, that universe of conscience and perfection is really great. And unlike the mind, which is the universe, or they call it the Big Bang universe, that world, those worlds of the intellect rather than of conscience. They deal with wisdom rather than perfection. And that's what I'm saying. So the superhuman conscience that I'm talking about is going to come up and is going to overcome everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. And Nigeria is going to rise. Once Nigeria gets into 10% of the brain and above, and everybody is doing it, governor, president, senator, school child, teacher, university professors, and everybody will be pure and perfect. And purity and perfection are what we need everybody doing it, you see that the whole world will open up, and you see opportunities and greater opportunities all over the place. Everybody will be wealthy, everybody will be fine, everybody will be healthy, living hundreds of years, not just 50 years, not just 60. People will live long as you want to live. That is the message, and that's what the superhuman conscience is about. I thank you very much for listening.